Matters with Paul Rosen.
And if you really think about it, what does medication do except treat the symptom?
Exactly.
Then once you eliminate that and you reach a different plateau, it's undescribable.
Straight talk about health with your host, Paul Rosen.
I was looking for relevant information a moment ago on the internet, Paul. Imagine that. And I went to this site and it said they have a cookie consent tool. You have to click on this little tab here in order for them to put cookies on your computer so they can follow you around. Your body does not have a cookie consent tool, does it? If a virus comes into your body, it just goes in there. However, you can make it so your body is able to resist. You can create your own organic cookie consent tool. How about that? Cookie in a technological sense, not in the Oreo sense.
Gotcha, right.
All right. So we were talking about the immune
system. We're talking
system.
about the immune system. The reason I'm taking time to do this for you folks is because it explains, for example, why you might or can develop an autoimmune disease. If you hyperstimulate the humoral part of your immune system, then the body will overreact and the cell-mediated is somehow bypassed, and then the various processes that help to eliminate the byproducts that are created when the body produces so much white blood cell, and white blood cells, and the resulting the technical term is phagocytosis, but I know that's probably going to
Well, I don't know about the household.
But in any case...
Listen, Paul, I don't know about the household you grew up in, but I was always hearing, don't hyperstimulate your humoral.
Really?
I heard that all the time.
I never did.
Yeah, so
you had a very unique household.
We don't want to do that, right?
In any case, by hyperstimulating the humoral part of your system, you expose yourself to more and more potential sicknesses that the body has a tougher time of eliminating. Because
let me walk that back. I'm sorry to interrupt, but let me walk that back a little bit. By doing this, or we could do this, I should say, through vaccinations. Is that right?
That's what vaccinations do. They bypass the cell-mediated response and stimulate the humoral response. Now, part of that is because when you get a vaccination, there are preservatives in there, such as formaldehyde and maybe some mercury via thimerosal. And then there are the little bits of extraneous protein that come along with the production of the vaccination. And these things are injected directly into your bloodstream, bypassing any recognition mechanisms your body has to say, hey, there's a foreign invader here. And that can stimulate your humoral immune system, right? Which in turn bypasses the cell-mediated immune system, and therefore leaving you more susceptible to further, viruses, say like the rhinovirus or any other type of microbial infection, and susceptible to other types of autoimmune conditions. Interestingly enough, this is the very similar thing that happens to people with leaky gut syndrome, where extraneous proteins make their way through the gut into the bloodstream, and then the body goes to work tagging these foreign invaders. And again, you develop some sort of autoimmune condition like IBD, Crohn's, or other types of conditions.
What was most horrifying about what you said, Paul, was the fact that the vaccines sometimes contain byproducts which also contribute to ill health.
Correct. That's exactly right. And so, again, when we get a vaccine, any vaccine, we are deliberately trying to bypass the cell-mediated immune system and only provoke a humoral response. Because the truth of the matter is, how many people would line up to get a vaccine if they knew for certain that they would essentially experience all the symptoms of the actual exposure to the whatever virus it was you were trying to avoid?
Well, that's true. And I wonder if some people, though, haven't been conditioned to believe that if you get the vaccination, you may experience some ill effects, but it's toward a better end. You may get mildly sick with one thing or the other, but in so doing, you're making yourself more resistant to the more serious flu.
The other complication here is that the stronger the humoral versus the cell-mediated part of your immune system, right? When the humoral is continuously stimulated, it leaves us with no avenue to clear the poisons that we have just been injected with from our tissues. It leaves us with chronic inflammation as our bodies struggle to clear these inflammatory toxins.
Are you, in effect, by overstimulating the humoral, are you leaving your body defenseless in some way?
Well, you say defenseless. You're leaving it compromised.
Okay, let's put it that way.
Defenseless.
Well, less able to defend.
But you're compromising your immune system, right? You're leaving yourself susceptible to the accumulation of foreign substances like heavy metals, like other preservatives such as formaldehyde, like foreign protein fragments that enter your bloodstream, leaving you with the real possibility of more complicated conditions down the road.
So, in effect, by trying to fix a problem...
Well, let me finish. And you are also not going to get any kind of lifetime immunity. This is just temporary. So you see, again, there are more complications that more risks that you are incurring to get less than a coin flip's worth of protection from symptoms. Now you see it's much deeper than that, and that protection could cost you in the long term. When the alternatives to strengthening your immune system and handling the flu virus that you might incur contain none of these risks. Risk-benefit analysis.
Well, there you go. So you can have something that creates all these additional issues, in effect, creating more problems by trying to fix a problem, or you can have something that's just more risk-averse. Is that right?
Yeah. And even if you get the flu, even if you have the symptoms, there are absolutely ways to deal with these very simply, very easily, and within a matter of, a week to 10 days, you're back on the road. So the next step in this process is, how do you strengthen your immune system? What can you do to strengthen that part one of your immune system, the cell-mediated part of the immune system, that part that gives you the lifetime immunity? So what do you want to snack on? You want to snack on things like carrots, or maybe even squash.
No, you don't want to, but you should. I mean, everybody wants to eat the
wild-caught Alaskan salmon, organically pastured eggs, pastured grass-fed beef. These are all meats. They're not all meats, they're meats and vegetables, all of which contain the vitamins that are important to support your immune system. Even some limited consumption of fruit, like the berries or lemons or limes, to go along with bell peppers and broccoli and cauliflower, which contain the vitamin C that are important.
All these things are good for you, and we should add they have many additional health benefits on top of helping your immune system, correct?
Correct, and of course my patient Dell really began to learn this, really take it to heart.
Here's Dell on his road to better health.
How did you come to get your nutrition response testing evaluation in the first place?
Well, I had been sick for several months and not getting any better. In fact, I was getting worse. I would have trouble laying down and sleeping at night and breathing because my nose was draining, and it was my bronchial tubes were filling up, and everything I tried, I had been to the doctor, and they'd give me a round of antibiotics, and then a round of prednisone, and then another round of antibiotics, another round of prednisone.
Oh my gosh!
And they said that let's try a heavier dose of prednisone. That my body was just overreacting and overstimulated. Stimulated.
There you go.
And so if they put me on a longer dose of prednisone, that would calm the body and it wouldn't react and things would return back to normal again. And I says, no, you've had 5 chances already and you haven't hit it yet.
Oh my goodness.
It's getting worse. And so that's when I came to you, and within 20 minutes you said I had wheat allergies and the sugar. I need to get off all grains and all wheat to let my body return to a normal condition. And within 3 days of getting off the wheat, and I was able to breathe and sleep at night and lay down and sleep again.
3 days?
Yes.
Gosh, I forgot about that. And then, were there any other symptoms or conditions that you were experiencing besides that? I mean, I know that was the one that was, in your face. But were there any other things long term? Any other issues?
Well, I've had double bypass heart surgery and angina.
In other words, cardiovascular disease.
Exactly.
Yeah. What else?
And then recently I had chlorine poisoning.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess what I'm trying to get at, the other thing was, as we were talking about it, and that's kind of what came to my mind. You said that you used to have allergies, or you were having allergies, and you noticed that you weren't experiencing them anymore.
Oh, yes. And that's taken 3 years to recognize. Because every year in the springtime, and I never had allergies before, and so every year in the springtime, I was getting worse, and it was lasting longer. So
right.
I would get the colds and have to take off work and just to try to get over it. But I all of a sudden realized this year that I haven't missed a day of work because of sickness. So
you haven't missed a day since then. And I know, the interesting thing that you said now, it's very important for people out there to understand that Dell came to me with his specific issues. And when we perform a nutrition response testing evaluation, it's based on the individual. So for him, it was important to get off the wheat and some other grains. And sugar's kind of a no-brainer. You'd agree on that, right?
Yes.
And have you had any experiences with going back on sugar or sort of getting into it intentionally or unintentionally? And what was the result?
Well, it's interesting because Friday we went out and had dessert, and I cheated, and I had some ice cream with a
cherry on
caramel. Yeah. No, it was
no cherry.
It was a maple sugar concentrate on top of it, along with a chocolate or a brownie. And I just took one bite of the brownie. I knew it had wheat in it, but I enjoyed the sugar and the maple flavored topping. And I was up all night.
Oh my goodness! So you just get reminded.
Yes, I had to test the system.
We'll go to part 2 of Dell's story momentarily, Paul. But he mentioned prednisone. That's actually an immune system suppressant. Is that right?
Well, what it is it's an anti-inflammatory, and the interesting thing is to link up our conversation last hour about the 2 different immune systems that we have in our body, right? Which one do you think was on hyperdrive?
For him?
The one that cleans up the one that cleans up. He was getting chronic colds and nothing, antibiotics and this and that couldn't clean things up. He was constantly getting them. What was missing? The cleanup, or that's the cell-mediated, the cleanup, or the humoral, which was
the extracellular.
Yeah. Right. Which one was missing?
I'm going to guess the humoral was the one that was...
the cleanup.
Well, I had a 50% chance.
You did. The humoral was the one that was hyperstimulated. that is to say, chronically stimulated, right? And he had chronic inflammation, and there was limited ability for his body to clean things up.
Hence the prednisone, which was supposed to
reduce the inflammation.
Right, but obviously
it
wasn't getting the job done.
Because there was less cleanup. And by changing his diet and identifying which challenges, which environmental challenges there were, right, including the elimination of sugar and many of the grains, his body was able to rearrange and start cleaning things up.
Sounds fantastic.
Which is why he experienced such symptom relief in 3 days.
Let's hear part 2 of Dell's story. Here we go.
The single factor, the most important factor, it appears, or at least one of the most important, is that genes, you have to recognize genes have to be turned on. And the factor, one of the main factors that triggers genes to manifest is food.
Food, yeah.
Food. Oh, my goodness. So we're not so helpless after all, are we?
No. I've certainly been able to turn my life around by just changing my diet, and I've lost weight as a result of that as well. So. And
you were also it was recommended to you that you take certain supplements to deal with certain what we call barriers to healing.
Yes.
And you've been taking those, and I remember there was a little bit of a time where I didn't see you for a while, and then I started to see you again.
Yeah.
And what did you notice in between times?
I was slowly getting worse.
Yeah.
I was continuing to take some of the supplements, but not all of them, and I was slowly starting to go back downhill again, and that's when I started back up.
So it didn't necessarily mean that you had to see me every week for the rest of your life, right?
Right.
But it means that every once in a while you got to stop back to be evaluated and to be accountable, don't you think?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that's every weight loss program out there stresses accountability, and so for health reasons we need that accountability as well.
So you had said that you'd used other methods to address this. You talked about the pharmaceuticals, the cortisone and or prednisone stuff, and what other drugs you were taking?
It was the antibiotics.
Oh, antibiotics, yeah. And were you using any of the over-the-counter, antihistamines and all that sort of stuff?
Oh, definitely. They had me on the nose sprays and the eye washes and the pills.
And your health was steadily
going downhill. Oh yeah.
And now, how many drugs do you take?
None,
exactly. So when you got your evaluation, was it a painful process?
No, it was very restful.
But was it unusual?
Well, it's unusual in that a lot of people aren't exposed to kinesiology and the strength test method, and think it's voodoo or something, but I had been trained on it, so I knew what it was. I knew what it could do, and so when you started doing that, I knew what to expect, and what's neat about it is, for me, I can sense the results. When you're doing the strength test and you say, "Oh, you're weak on that," most of the time I can sense that weakness as well. So I know that it's not just you saying that I'm weak. I have that sense that I can understand what you're saying and agree with it.
Yeah,
with your diagnosing it as well.
Yeah, you can actually feel it. And the interesting thing for those of you folks out there who don't know what kinesiology is, kinesiology is well, it depends on what practice you're in, but the kinesiology that we're talking about is in relationship to muscle testing. And that's what Dell is referring to in terms of the strength and weakness of a muscle. And just let me say that the significance of it is based on the recognition that your bodily functions are controlled, are regulated by something called the autonomic nervous system. Auto meaning self, nomic meaning body, self-regulating of the body. Can you imagine, Del, if we as human beings were responsible to ensure that we breathed 24/7?
We'd never go to sleep. We'd be afraid we'd forget.
And therefore, we'd probably all end up dead. But
right.
Fortunately for us, we have a pilot we call the autonomic nervous system, and that is essentially responsible for maintaining lots and lots of functions. And those functions include, the immune system, for example, and of course your breath rate and digestive functions and heart functions and all kinds of stuff.
What a mess Dill was. Is that true?
Oh, yeah, he's such a nice guy.
Totally
a nice
I understand.
guy.
And I don't mean to imply anything else, but he had all kinds of stuff going on,
absolutely.
including his heart issues.
Yeah. I mean, he had a chronic angina, which, he had been using nitroglycerin, and I actually shared with him a supplement that I used. It worked better than his...
What is the nitro meant to do, by the way?
It helps the reaction is to help to dilate the blood vessels.
And that seems like a fairly common thing for heart patients to turn to.
There's a vitamin E2, that does a better job and also nourishes at the same time, whereas nitroglycerin does not.
It sounds healthier to me. I think I'd rather be taking a vitamin than nitroglycerin.
Well, yeah.
One more note, you can get a free chapter of Paul Rosen's book, The Missing Piece. Just go to his website, acunatural.com, acunatural.com, and fill out the dialog box that pops up. Rest assured, no information you provide will ever be shared with anyone else. So, what are you waiting for? Get going on your personal road to wellness today.